Good morning, traders. It's Wednesday, March the 4th. Taking a look at the charts this morning, we've got a bunch of little things I want to kind of cover here real quick. But looking at the SP 500 daily chart, you can see here, let me just zoom way in. We're looking at the daily chart here. You can see we're starting to pull back to the 20-day moving average. Saw some weakness yesterday, a big gap down and continued selling. It did recover fairly well into the close or the second half or the afternoon there. And then it's starting to sell back down to test yesterday's lows. I got a feeling it's going to want to come down and break yesterday's lows, flush the market out, put some more fear in the market, and bring it down somewhere into this consolidation, which also happens to be this previous pivot high. So, and of course, we got the 20-day moving average, which typically acts as a support for at least one bounce. Now, we've had a strong move away from the 20-day, so the first tag of it or getting close to it should give us some ground effect, meaning we'll probably see some type of bounce or pause at minimum at this level. So if we just drop down to the 30-minute chart, and let me zoom out a couple days here. Now, the 20-day moving average is working its way up here. Overall, if we were to just do a quick measured move to the downside using Fibonacci extensions, we got the recent high from a couple days ago to yesterday's low and to yesterday's close up here. That gives us a downside target around the 2088 on the SP 500 futures. So that'll bring us down in pre-market trading. We've seen price sell off, and we could easily see this continue to break yesterday's low. And we started to see some fear step into the market the last couple of days. We've seen two levels where the market kind of got oversold. We saw some fear step in. Of course, whenever we see extreme fear, we usually see big buying step back in. That's what happened. But we got fear again yesterday, even more fear, a little heavier of a fear, and then we got another bounce, and it really stalled out at the previous sessions, more or less, kind of opening price from the previous session. So overall, it kind of hit its head as resistance, and now we're seeing a move down here. Of course, this is pre-market, so we're not going to see the fear step into the market until 9:30 when everybody starts to see the P&L in their statements. And of course, we'll probably see yesterday's lows run. That'll create even more fear, and we'll probably see some flush out down to here, which I think could be a great opportunity to get long for a strong bounce and possibly even for the markets to continue to make new highs. So jumping around to a couple of other charts, let's just take a look at the cow ETF here, which we got long. It's showing a bottoming formation. Obviously, it had a big down day yesterday, but I did point out it's going to be pretty volatile. It's in this type of price action where we get pops and drops. They're going to be fairly significant. Overall, the momentum here is shifting from down and starting to move sideways and up. And if we just drop to the 30-minute chart, you get a better view of where we stand with the momentum. You can see the noise in this chart, how it's come down here. If we start to look at the price action, we've gone from a series of lower highs and lower lows. So we've got, let me just use red here. We've got lower highs and lower lows, lower highs. And then we did see a lower low here and lower low over here. And now we're starting to see higher highs. So we've got this poke to a nominal new high, and then we've got a higher high over here. We've got a higher high yesterday, sorry, 2 days ago. And then at this point, we've got a higher low. We'll see where it opens. It could open lower still, but overall, we're starting to see the shift kind of going sideways here, and we're starting to see things move up. And with any luck, we'll start to see a little bounce today. It might still make a lower low somewhere down over here, continue to pull back a bit more. But hopefully we'll start to see shift with higher highs, and eventually the momentum will pick up and we'll start to see it break out and have a strong bounce to around the 2750, 28 area, and then from there it can go all the way up to 29, 2950 and continue to move up. Looking at a couple other plays here, we've been watching bonds. Let's just go back to the daily chart. We'll pull up TLT. It's kind of the most watched long bond. I've drawn on the chart here our kind of levels that we're looking for. Overall, the measured move here, once we had price kind of break down and have a gap to the downside, we're going to take this measured move all the way to the downside. Then we had this bounce, which happened to come right into the 50-day and 20-day. And the downside measured move brings us right down here to the 123.18 area, which in a couple sessions will also be the 150-day moving average as it works its way higher. And of course, once we break this previous low here, this will be an ABC correction. The ABC correction is what really flushes the market out, so we can see a very sharp drop here once we break this low. And I think we could get an opportunity to get long into bonds here. And of course, if we see bonds continue to unwind and come down here, we're probably going to see that bounce in the equities market. So money will flow into equities and continue out of bonds. So I think that gives us a good opportunity for a potential long setup here in equities, and also short term as equities bounce. And then once we get that bounce in equities, I think we'll have an opportunity to get into bonds and see bonds have a bounce that could form a basing pattern here and eventually push to new highs. Now taking a look at another one, let's just look at the US dollar, UUP. It's been on fire for a while here, continues to move up. I've drawn a couple levels on here. Let's just zoom in a bit more. More or less, we saw it really kind of pop and then have a pullback and a big explosive move to the upside. From there, we've had it pull back, and now it's consolidating in this flag. And more or less, its measured move, it's breaking this previous high. Its upside target, if we were to just look at this price action, let me squeeze it down here. It's around the 25.47. So it looks as though the UUP, the US dollar here, is breaking out to the upsides above the 5-day moving average. Looks as though it could have a quick squeeze all the way up to the 25.45 area. Once it hits that level, it'll probably stall out. This type of a breakout, usually when it's kind of that clear, usually doesn't have a lot of power behind it. It'll be very similar to what you see over here, where you see price. Let me just draw on the chart really quick. See price pop up, kind of flag sideways, and then finally when it does break, you get a quick little some choppiness, a quick squeeze up, and then of course the market will try and shake everybody out. So I think we could see something similar where the US dollar squeezes a little bit higher. Things will probably get choppy here, and then I think we could see it fizzle out and fade back down. And I did give out a monthly report. I'll put a link in here to it that shows how the US dollar index is at a major multi-year resistance zone, a downtrend line that's more or less flying across the chart at this level, and it goes back years. I think we're getting to a point here where the US dollar could start to really stall out. Now taking another look at another one, just a random one. If we look at BABA, the Alibaba group, it's broken down to new all-time lows. And taking a measured move here, we had that initial from up here, we had a big move to the downside, had its first tight little flag with high volume. Let's just pull the volume on here. Big tight flag, and now it's starting to move. The downside measured move here for this is all the way down to around the 73 area. And you can see here it came down to the 61% retrace or target. That's usually the first sign where the market is going to find some natural support, and it did. And usually when it finds that support, usually it means we're probably going to have the second target reached. Usually you'll see a bounce here and a pause. That's actually a good sign. It means these numbers are pretty much dead on with how fractals and sentiment is working for the overall measured move. So we get a bounce here, and then we can see it easily break down and hit that second measured move, which is around the 73.80. So going to be interesting to see how that kind of unfolds going forward. Anyways, let's just take a quick look over at precious metals. Gold and silver relatively flat this morning. Here is the gold chart, and I do have some downside targets here. We had this recent sell-off, and then we had this little bounce up to the 20-day moving average. The downside target is 1176, which brings it down into these previous pivot lows over here, which could act as support. When it gets to that level, maybe an opportunity, depending how gold miners are performing, to get long gold miners as the leverage kind of play to take advantage of gold. And we could see gold miners explode. We could probably see gold bottom too, but gold miners have got a little more kind of leverage or high beta to gold. Looking at crude oil. Crude oil is up 1% this morning, still flagging out in this pattern. This is the first bounce. It's still kind of got so much of a bearish little angle here. It's had a big down day and then a couple inside days. This is usually a bearish sign. Let's just zoom in a bit so you can see this clear. So inside day means you've got a big candle, and the following sessions are all inside that candle. Now let's just pull the volume up. Overall, the volume doesn't show anything too significant. It wasn't a huge volume on the downside, but overall, these are inside days. We're right to the top of that level, which is also the top of high volume area here. We've got a lot of candles starting and closing at that price range, so it is significant. And this pattern here shows that we could easily see this continue to drop down to the lower end of this candle and possibly have that measured move all the way down, somewhere down to the 45 or 46 area. So keep our eye on crude oil here for that type of price action. Anyways, that's really it for this morning. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye.